Okay, welcome everybody to the Women in Tech Finding Your Lane panel. My name is Carrie Sensenbrenner and I'm with Next Tech and I'll be moderating this panel, but we welcome you to hear from three women from various technology roles at Salesforce. So we're going to start off. Thank you ladies for joining us today. Let's just do a round robin, introduce yourselves and how long you've been at Salesforce and a description of your current role.
All right, I can go first. So, hi everyone. Super excited to be here. I wish I could see your faces. I grew up in Indiana, so I'm also curious to see what schools are here. But my name is Angelica Rodriguez. I am actually, as of a month ago, now a senior manager for engineering at Salesforce. And I've been at the company for almost 10 years now.
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Tracy Sullivan. I'm a solution consultant at Salesforce. I've been here approximately 4.5 years, and I changed careers to come into the tech space. So my prior life, I was a financial controller. So had a career before I came to Salesforce as well. Nice to meet everyone.
Hi, everyone. So lovely to meet you. My name's Melissa Zwickel, and I'm a senior success guide here at Salesforce. I grew up in Indianapolis, so really excited that we are doing a session today with all Indiana students. So for my particular role, I essentially teach our customers how to use our products, and I've been at Salesforce for about 5 years now. So really excited to hear your questions.
Well, let's get started today since these are all high school students and they're looking forward to what their next steps should be. Let's hear about your journey to your current career placement. So Tracy, you've had a shift in career. So that's relevant to helping students see that it's not a linear experience for everybody to get to your current position. So share your journey with them from high school on, if you don't mind, so that they can see what theirs might look like.
Well, I'll go ahead and get started with that one. Quite honestly, in high school, I had planned on majoring as a computer scientist, computer engineering, but I had the opportunity to take an accounting class as an elective my senior year, and I totally switched my plans. And so I do have my BA in accounting, and I do have a master's in MBA as well. But my journey basically was wanting to ensure that I had a good, sound foundation of understanding business. And the accounting degree and my experience as an auditor and analyst allowed me to see different industries, to be behind the scenes and work with my team members as we, work through different business situations. And so as I did that, I found myself always in the IT department, helping them to map some of our financial information, helping them identify challenges that we have within our systems. And so I made that decision with my household. I do have a family as well to take this journey. And so I actually started by attending a boot camp here locally in Indianapolis, and I learned how to code in the Python language. But then as I began to explore job opportunities, I found that the Python language wasn't used vastly within the Indianapolis area at the time. And so someone within one of my classes through networking, and I know we're going to get to networking, but via networking, I found Salesforce. And I'm just grateful to be here because it's been such a wonderful journey to work with a company that values its employees as Salesforce does. So I will turn it over to Melissa or Angelica.
I can go next. So when I was starting college, I was a nursing major. A lot of the women in my family were nurses, so it was something that I was exposed to a lot growing up. And I remember there was one point my junior year of college where I was in clinicals. I was working at the hospital at the time, and all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. And at the time in college, that was a really scary realization for me because I had to reevaluate everything. And again, I was a junior, so I was like, there's not a lot of time. So it felt like a lot of pressure. But luckily, I found my major, unfortunately, at my university doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Digital Media Studies at the time. And I knew that computer science was kind of like an up and coming field. And so I made sure to have some computer science courses incorporated in that. And then from graduation, I was able to find a role at Salesforce that was specifically for recent grads. And I would say if that's something that you have the ability to find within other companies as you're searching for roles after college, I think that it's a great way to like transition, especially into the corporate world if you don't have a lot of experience, or even if you're looking for internships within college, I would highly recommend working for a variety of different businesses. I had a couple of jobs on campus when I was in college, somewhere in the tech industry, somewhere giving campus tours. And then I also had an internship where I was working at a help desk for a Delta Faucet company. And that taught me a lot just about some of the kind of ins and outs of a larger business functioning. So I was really grateful for having that experience before coming to Salesforce.
All right. Well, like Tracy, when I was in high school, there was a class called, or actually a program called Project Lead the Way. And it was a program that helped introduce students to engineering, and they would have classes in different schools. And so my class had an introduction to engineering class, and that's when I discovered all the engineering fields I didn't want to go into. And what I was most interested in, I realized, was anytime we had time on the computers. So back then, unfortunately, my high school didn't have any coding classes or anything like that. So I didn't have that exposure, but I had that interest. And I used to play tennis, and during conditioning, they make you run up and down stairs, and there was a poster on the wall, and like the top like jobs were listed there, like the hottest careers, and number one was software engineering. And I was like, that sounds cool. Like, I kind of think I want to do that. So I started doing my research there, and we attended a college and careers fair, right? Which I'm sure many of you might have the opportunity to attend, I would hope. Definitely recommend going to those, because that's where I found the university I ended up attending, which was Hulman. And there they told me, like, we're in an all engineering school. We definitely have computer science and software engineering. Come have a visit, right? And when they did an overview of their majors, software engineering was just like, I said, yes, like that's what I want to do. With no prior coding experience, I just kind of jumped in. So I learned everything at school. It was really hard, but it was totally worth it, because I really do enjoy programming. So for the majority of my career here at Salesforce, I was in software engineering, writing code. Even today, I still do that. And I also came in through, as Melissa mentioned, kind of those programs that are specifically targeted for people just coming out of college. So I was actually an intern with the company that Salesforce acquired. So the Indianapolis office used to be a different company called Exact Target. And so I interned there. And then that summer I was an intern, we got acquired by Salesforce. And so the full-time offer ended up coming from Salesforce. And I've been here ever since, because I really do enjoy it here. And we'll talk about some of the things that make it fun to work here and really rewarding.
Well, thank you. It's very interesting hearing what your journey has entailed. Now, specifically, think back about, as a woman in the tech field, how has that impacted your journey? And has there been any unique challenges because of your gender?
I feel really grateful for a lot of the jobs that I've had in tech so far have always had women leadership. And I think that has been extremely encouraging for me. And I don't think it's the norm by any means, but I will say that it helps me to have motivation to like continue to work up in my career and aspire for like larger challenges. And I remember my internship that I mentioned previously at Delta Faucet Company, that was the first place that I went to that had a group specifically for women at the company. We would meet, kind of talk about challenges. And then once I came to Salesforce, I found out that they're called business resource groups, and we've got a lot of different ones, and all of us are involved in them in various capacities, but there's one that we specifically have for women too, which is great. And I think having the ability to connect with other women in the field has helped too, just to be able to discuss if there are challenges and things. I would say, if anything, for myself, I always feel like I have to work a little harder, maybe. Thankfully, for the most part, all the customers that I've worked with have been very respectful to me. So I've never had negative experiences from that perspective. But I would say it's definitely nice, the company that you're working at, to see other women as leaders. Angelica or Tracy?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think for me personally, I think my biggest issue, especially when I first started in the career, was just with myself. Like, I would go in a room and it would be very clear, like, I'm the only woman in the room, I'm the only person of color in the room, I'm the only Latina in the room. And then I felt this immediate pressure. Like, I was like, I'm representing everybody, or I have to show that I'm meant to be here. But everyone around me was super nice, right, like no one was putting that pressure on me. It was just something that came from myself, because it is a little daunting to be the only one, right, and to stand out that way. And you know, that's kind of how it was throughout college as well, and through my career. And so some of the things that really helped with that, in college, for one, there was the Grace Hopper Women in Computing Conference, which is a conference just for women in tech. And being able to attend that while I was in college with the 5 other women in our department was awesome, because I had never seen so many women in tech, and seeing them succeed. It got me excited about continuing with the career. Um, and then at work, as Melissa mentioned, we have the different groups here, which kind of help with making you find your tribe, or also feel included, have a space to share safely. And here in the engineering department, we also have a women engineers group, and we meet pretty regularly, just to give each other feedback, and share stories, and say, hey, this happened to me the other day. Does this seem normal? What is your take? What's your advice on this situation? And I found that really helpful.
For me, I've always had a great sense of self-awareness. I grew up with a very strong family dynamic that never made me think about I was female or a woman. My brothers treated me equally. My uncles treated me equally. So I do recognize that we do have challenges from a gender perspective, but I also recognize that most of your relationships are built on commonality. So when I walk in a room, I look for something that I have in common with people in the room. I don't necessarily look at what the differences are. I look at where we can come together. And so that approach has definitely worked for me, with being what some people would call a double minority. I mean, even when I moved to Indiana, I didn't grow up here, but I know so many people here in networking as well, that I think if you don't necessarily look at the differences and approach it that way, that will help you take away some of that pressure, but as Angelica mentioned, that you put on yourself. So many times you do feel like, I believe Melissa said, that you have to overachieve to get there. And I'm like, no, you don't. You can be and work, you work hard just like everyone else, but you have to network to know where those opportunities are. And those opportunities are going to come from people who do not have the same dynamic in life that you have. And so you have to be willing to open yourself to all types of people in networking and working with them.
Thank you. This next question comes from the chat, Angelica. I think it's for you. It says, were you the only girl at Rose in your major?
I was one of 8 in my graduating class, but this was back in 2015, and I know they've made huge improvements since then. So that's probably not the case anymore.
Oh, very cool. So thank you so much for the question in the chat. As you're continuing to watch, submit questions in the chat and we'll integrate them in as we go through. Just to follow up that topic of women in classes and representation, what would you say to a student who is setting up their schedule as a junior or a senior, and maybe they're nervous because maybe in their particular building, the class is a flip. They're not well represented in their class, and they're nervous to leave their friends because of their interest. What would you say to them as they're exploring schedule options?
I would say, like, don't be afraid to, and I'm going to use like a Salesforce term here, like a trailblazer, right? Don't be afraid to be the first. Somebody has to be first. And you being there is important as well for others, right? That encourages others like you to also participate. So don't let that hold you back. Be more focused on are the classes that I'm looking at what I'm actually interested in. I think that's number one, the most important thing you have to keep in mind.
Thank you. All right, so thinking back to the start of your career, what is something that has helped you succeed, or even something you wish you did differently at the starting point of your career?
I feel like
go ahead.
Sorry, Tracy. I was going to say, I feel like at the start, but also throughout your career too, it's really important to always want to learn new things. I think, especially in tech, it's changing constantly. And it's honestly hard for us to all keep up with the rapid pace that new technology is being released to. So having a desire to learn about those new products, one, I think keeps you like relevant in the market, but also shows your leadership that you're like wanting to continue to improve upon your skills too. So I think that, and then also connecting with people, whether like for me, I was really thankful that I had a group of kind of college students. We were all, or recently graduated college students that started Salesforce at the same time. So being able to connect with them and kind of, study for different certifications that we had and forming that network initially, I think that was really impactful and helpful for me too. So I think any opportunity that you have to kind of connect with someone or a group of people when you're first getting started, it's good to have that initial support system.
I agree with Melissa and Angelica said, but I would also like to add to that is understanding yourself, because as Melissa mentioned, learning is continuous. And so you need to understand, how do you learn the best? Like, are you a person who likes to read to learn? Are you an audio visual type person? And then that again helps take down some of the barriers that we put on ourselves of how we can achieve. Um, I just really think that once you understand yourself and what makes you tick, what's going to drive you, that will allow you to have that self esteem to not look at everything as a potential barrier, but as an opportunity to grow and become better as you move through life.
All right, we've got a couple from the chat. So one thing is, can you just give I'm not sure if we started with this, but what is an overview of what Salesforce does for maybe people who don't know?
I would defer to Tracy or Melissa to give that spiel. They're a little better at that.
So Salesforce, you might see the term CRM associated with us a lot. We're a customer relationship management platform. So if you think, for example, of a time that you might have been visiting like an online site, doing shopping, there might be different data that's being collected for you. And on the back end, it creates a profile of who you are, what kind of products you're interested in, and things along those lines. And then after that, you might get different emails saying, hey, we've got a sale on this product that you looked at recently. So Salesforce essentially keeps that profile of you. And as you continue to interact with different products or campaigns that our various customers have, it continues to update that information that we have. And there are a lot of different ways like through text message, email, that we can kind of continue to build your profile, social as well. And then also something that was shocking for me when I started here is we have products that touch so many different industries too. So health sciences, automotive, just to name a couple. We've got even a product that's specific to like environmental or net zero clouds. So hopefully that helps, but let us know if you have other questions.
It's
And I'll
definitely
jump in to that as well. And bless you, Carrie. I saw that you were sneezing there. Salesforce also, as Melissa mentioned, we do the customer relationship, and it is a platform, but it also is a mechanism for companies to understand their data and to understand what's driving their markets or where they're missing opportunities in the market. And so, my role at Salesforce, we implement the software for the customer based on their specifications. And so, as Melissa mentioned, I work with various industries. You know, our government, we have PubSec where we implement our software for that industry as well. And so, I don't, it's one of those things that if you could take, I would say, several different platforms that you all probably use, like not necessarily any of our competitors, but if you're familiar with Excel or Google Sheets, it's like taking millions of Google Sheets, putting them all together, sharing that information, and molding it in a way that's going to help your company make better decisions.
Thank you. Another question from the chat, and I'm going to add to it a little bit. It's the question in the chat says, why a big corporation versus a startup? But to maybe even add to it with what would be maybe your benefit of being in a big corporation versus a startup?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was an easy decision just because I was coming out of college and Salesforce offered me the job. So I said yes, you know. So I didn't even think startup or big corporation. I was just focused on I need a job after getting out of college. But why did I stay? So why did I stay in this big corporation? So big benefits here at Salesforce, especially in engineering, are that it's like working at a startup sometimes without actually working at a startup. So there's a ton of work, a ton of opportunity. Things move very quickly. It's pretty fast paced, but manageable, and that's what I like about it. It's both. And how it's able to do that is because it's such a big company. We have all these resources to be able to provide training to employees, to be able to provide any other kind of resources required, and the benefits, right? So they really focus on making sure you're happy, you're able to do your job, and that you want to stay here. So I would say that's a big benefit of big versus small.
From a career perspective, a small organization will allow you to just grasp so much of other information from other departments because usually there's only two or three people that's working, like, say, for instance, purchasing, or two or three people in IT, or two or three people in the finance accounting area. But as Angelica mentioned, you may not have the robustness of having that corporate umbrella that will provide some of the benefits that you have as well. And so when you're trying to make that decision, and I know you all are probably saying, she keeps saying no, knowing yourself, you do have to understand what's going to work for you and where you are in your life. Some people make those decisions based on, say, for instance, if they have children. Well, benefits are going to be very important. Your health care is going to be very important. And not that all companies won't provide that, but the cost that you may pay as an individual comes into play. And so you really need to sit down and do that kind of SWOT analysis or do the pro cons. But there's benefits to both, and there's cons to both. So you just really should look at it from, is this company the right company for me? Is this a good fit for me? Does it work well with my personality? Because that's going to help your trajectory, no matter whether it's a large or small company.
Thank you. All right, another question from the chat. It says, when going into the CS field, is the college that you intend important?
This is a tricky one. It is and it isn't, right? And so what do I mean by that? So It is because if you have the opportunity to go to a college, because I know that's not in the plans for everybody or not possible for everybody, but if you do have the opportunity to go to college, picking a school that has a great CS program is important, right? It does matter. You do learn more. There's more networking opportunities there. There's more possibility there. So I think that that is important there. And when I say it's not as important is on the other side of things, I also have the opportunity to do interviews and hiring at Salesforce. And so when we're in these interviews, we don't look at that, right? That's not a number one thing. What we're most focused on is your experience. Is do you have the skills to do the job that we're filling the role for? And that, doesn't mean you have had to go to a 4-year college. You could have gone to a coding boot camp. You could have gone to a smaller school versus a bigger school. So at that point, it's not as important. But I do think that if you have the opportunity to decide that you should pick a program with a good reputation, because it just sets you up for success later on.
Thank you. Can you speak a little bit about the importance of maybe networking in your field, or even from the start of your career in advancing your career to now?
I'll jump in on that one. As I mentioned, with changing careers, I had to build a whole nother network outside of the one that I knew. And it's very important in the tech space. It's especially in the Indiana area because it's a small footprint in this state. And so, with that in mind, you want to. One thing that I did from a networking perspective, and I actually have a son in college, actually at Rose Hulman, so that's how I kind of met Angelica as well. That I have told him you have to put yourself out there. You have to be the first one to say hi sometimes, and so it can be so uncomfortable. But you have to, like we another Salesforce term we like to say, be comfortable at being uncomfortable. And so when I was starting to look for my next step in my journey, I actually went on LinkedIn, looked for people who were working at Salesforce, kind of looking at their titles and roles, and just reached out and said, "Do you have 15 or 20 minutes for a coffee chat?" And although I did eventually start working for what we call the mothership, the corporate office, I have a network through our ecosystem. So that's what we call all our partners or anyone who works with our CRM. We call that part of our ecosystem. And so that has allowed me to get a perspective, even though I work for the corporation, of what are our customers saying about our product? Like I sometimes reach back to that network where there was someone who was an admin or they were some type of controller working with our software and ask them, okay, what's the buzz? What are you hearing that people like? Or do you really are you using the software, in the way that was presented to you? Are there some things that you would like for it to do a little bit better? So it's really stepping out there and it's hard. I'm not going to tell anyone on this call that it is the easiest thing in the world unless you have that personality. Some people do, but most of us don't, especially in the tech space. But it's one of those things that the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you will be with it. So that's my 2 cents on the networking aspect, but you can't move without it.
All right, another question in the chat is, and this could be for anybody, or Angelica, you mentioned that you lead interviews, is what is an interview at Salesforce like? And if they wanted the job, how can they prepare? Or even thinking back to your first interview for that position that got you in the door, what was that like?
Yeah, so really quickly, I'll just share, like, interviews are going to look different per department. So they're going to look different for Melissa's org, for Tracy's org, for mine. So I'll speak for engineering specifically. For engineering, there's an initial coding test that's done via HackerRank. That's what most companies use at this point. And once you pass that, then you're put in a queue to go to interviews. And depending on what area you're in, you'll have anywhere from like 1 to 5 interviews and you should cover different areas of coding, right? I'm happy to answer any questions offline if anyone wants to follow up with me. This is an exercise I do with students a lot. So yeah, we'll be sharing information afterwards, some resources, and I'm happy to help. Like Tracy said, like sometimes you just have to reach out directly on LinkedIn and ask. I've definitely had students do that, so please feel free to do that as well.
Another question in the chat said, what would be some good colleges for CS to major in? Or is there one college that is popularly hired by Salesforce as well?
Not really, but they're in different regions. There's different schools that are known for it, right? So in Indiana, the 2 big ones that are known are Purdue, right? And then Hulman may not be as known, but they have a great program. I'm biased. And then, on the, I guess, West Coast, you might be looking at MIT. I'm geographically challenged, so excuse me if I say the
Stanford.
Yes. Go ahead, throw some more out there.
Yeah, there's one of the keys in the tech space that I've seen. Although we are speaking about majoring in CS, it's not necessarily majoring in CS. So many people that I have met within Salesforce didn't even major in computer science. They found a passion for computer science. And so, as Angelica mentioned, it was, that hands-on experience. Like we have a resource called Trailhead that you all can go out there and create accounts, or, even as Angelica mentioned, we can have a session to teach students how to set up their Trailhead account, where you can go out there and start learning our software. And you earn badges, and you can start learning how to prepare for certifications. And so I wouldn't necessarily say you have to have a CS degree to in some specific areas of Salesforce, but Salesforce is a vast company that you don't necessarily need to have that as your major. It might help also to have it as a minor, and maybe you major in you can major in accounting. I mean, I'm a prime example of that. So again, the key is doing what's going to help you be successful. So that passion when you interview will show through. As we're talking about interviewing, that's what made the difference in my interview, was that they saw the passion that I had for working for this company.
Okay, we've got another question in the chat specific about that transition in careers. It says, would you say that a transition in career after college would be hard?
Well, no. I can say for me, it was not. And part of the reason for that is I had a background in coding. Like I did code when I was in high school. So I did know, the technology and how it worked. But really the key is you finding what's going to work for your life. What is it that going to make you happy, make you want to get up in the morning and do that work? I think there's a saying that, if you find the job that makes you happy, that drives that passion, you never work a day in your life. And I can honestly say, since I have made my transition into the tech space, I've just been the happiest person. I mean, if it's not showing now, I'm probably smiling all the time. It's just been wonderful. But I won't say it doesn't have its challenges. So I'm not going to say it's pie in the sky, but you have to work. Mm-hmm. Don't underestimate having a very good work ethic. That's probably what's going to make the difference in your transition after college.
All right. Well, last question. What advice would you give to the high school students joining us today who are interested in tech but maybe unsure where to start? They've made it this far, so they've got
Trailhead. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say Trailhead. Because again, it allows you to spin up an org. That's what we call our part of our platform, where it's for a specific customer's use. You can get your hands in there and start building. You can start doing some of the code work if you're more related to the technical aspect. Learn SQL. That's our version of SQL. And so that's what I would recommend. Just go out there and build your Trailhead account. Reach out to me on LinkedIn and I will help anyone set up their Trailhead account.
I would say if you have any teachers that specialize in maybe a field that you're interested in at your school, I think it would be really beneficial to maybe reach out to them and see what their experiences have been in the field. And they might know someone that you can connect with and maybe ask some more specific questions to. I know when I was in high school, because I was interested in nursing, my aunt let me go to the hospital with her and shadow her for a day. And I loved that. And I think that if you have the opportunity to do something similar, I mean, as Angelica said, if you all want to reach out to any of us on LinkedIn, we're always happy to give like tours of Salesforce and things. So just let us know. Angelica.
Yeah, those are all great bits of advice there. And then lastly, I would say use social media, right? I know you guys are on your phones all the time. ChatGPT's out there and all these other AI bots. Just start asking questions. Like if you're not comfortable yet with reaching out directly to someone or shadowing someone, just start literally Googling, like, where can I learn this? Who can I talk to about this? And then what's really cool nowadays is you can see people's real experiences, right? Like you can go on TikTok and look up day in the life of a software engineer or something, and just see across the board what the experiences are like. So I would say use the tools you have at hand. And then you have us as well now as support. So yeah, just go for it and do what works for you, as Tracy has said.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our session. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, ladies, for your time today. And thank you for sharing with everyone your positions and your path and your passion for Salesforce and what you do. It's been such a wonderful experience learning from all of you today. And students, we will share a YouTube video, a recap if you joined late at any time, to see the session in full in a couple of weeks. So, and with that, that closes us for today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us, Carrie. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.